morning, SCC Sicamous. It has been a while since you have seen my face on camera. I am speaking today as Bob is still on holidays, and I am excited to speak. It's been a while, but I first just wanted to remind you guys that our Welcome Back Sunday is happening on September 6th. It's going to be on the Hub lawn. We have an Eventbrite event for you guys to register at, so we know who's coming to both the 9 a.m. and the 10:15 a.m. service. And that link will be found on our Instagram page at SCC Sicamous and our Facebook page, SCC Sicamous. So check those out and register. It's so awesome being back in community, and just it is a good time to just be together as a church again. But today we're just going to dive into this message, and first I'm going to pray. God, thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak today. Thank you for all that you are doing in our lives and all that you continue to do in our lives, God. And we just pray that, throughout the next little while and in the seasons that we're in, God, that we continue to trust and rely on you. May my words be your words. In your name, amen. So I've titled this sermon, What Now? And I've titled it this for many reasons. There's a lot been going on in our world right now. A lot of really funny memes referring to the year that we had hoped 2020 would be, and then the year that we actually got. They're funny, but they're not funny because they're so true, it almost hurts. But we're now entering our 7th month of a worldwide pandemic. And because of that, it has led to many life changes for people, church changes, job loss, uncertainty with schools, with, elementary, post-secondary, and I guess post-secondary is college. So elementary and high school and post-secondary. And there's just been a multitude of situations that are kind of just out of our control. And for me personally, I've continuously been asking myself that question, what now? Now, Johnny and I just recently purchased our very first home, which is super exciting. We just moved into this place this past weekend, and I never ever want to move while I'm 8 months pregnant again. That was silly. But for those of you who helped and who always seem to help and who always seem to be there, I promise that this will be the last one for a while. But we're excited. And, one of the things that you have to get to be able to kind of close and stuff is fire insurance. And the night before we were going to go into Hub Insurance was the night that fire started in Sicamous. And I woke up the next morning and I just saw all the posts and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I knew right away that we would not be able to get fire insurance, that this fire was out of control. And because it was so close to Sicamous, I just felt so defeated. But we went in anyways. We got the entire application done up to the point where it could be finalized. Just so as soon as that fire was out of control to the standard of the insurers, we could get it. But I mean, if you've done it, you know that buying a home is stressful, and you also learn a lot of new things of what's required and not required and what you need to do and what you shouldn't do when it comes to buying a house. And what I realized after we couldn't get this fire insurance, because our lawyers contacted us and said that if you don't get this before we close, we have to extend the possession date, which, let me tell you, at 8 months pregnant, really, really, really stressed me out. I had everything planned, right? We'd be able to get in before our lease on our rental was up. We'd be able to paint, we'd be able to move stuff, and then we could be out of our rental on or before August 31st. But then on the other hand, what if this fire gets worse? What if it doesn't get under control? I will be homeless at 9 months pregnant. And will say this, I don't think I have prayed as much and as hard about rain and that fire than I have in a very long time. But one thing that was made clear to me was I have absolutely no control over this situation. Zilch. None. Zero. I can't go fight the fire. That would be a sight to be seen at 8 months pregnant. I can't make it rain, though I could probably try a little rain dance again. Probably a sight to be seen at 8 months pregnant, and I have no dance skills whatsoever. The only thing that I could do, and probably the hardest when you're in a situation like this, and you just want to take control, you want to fix it, is to trust that God was in control. I actually had absolutely no control. And so I found myself being like, okay, God, what now? What are you doing? What's going on? And so I got as many people to pray that I could think of. I was up praying in the middle of the night, and we all know that you need your sleep. I was up checking the status of the fire on Forestry, BC in the middle of the night. I was absolutely obsessed with this fire. But I had to keep reminding myself. My mom had to keep reminding me. Beth had to keep reminding me that God's got this, that this is not something that I can control. And he did. But not without a minor panic attack when Hub Insurance contacted me and said, oh, by the way, there's 2 more fires near Revelstoke within 50 kilometers, and I don't know if you're going to actually be able to get this anytime soon. Did I mention that we closed in the next week? And so I prayed some more, but after a few more hours, it was finalized. Praise Jesus. And guess what? I didn't do anything to make that happen. It was completely and utterly out of my control. And I guess my question is, how many times do we catch ourselves thinking or saying, what now? I feel like the season that we're all living through in the last 6 to 7 months of this pandemic, with not really an end in sight at this point, is that question that we're all asking. What now? Right? If you've been laid off from your job, what now? What's happening with school? Do I send my kids back? Do I go back to college? What now? My whole life just did this flip-flop. What now? See, there's so many situations, whether simple or drastic, where we find ourselves in moments where things are just out of our control. Plain and simple, they're out of our control. But the thing is we as humans, we like control, right? Some more than others. Guilty, ask Johnny. We like to be the hero. We like to fix it. We like to do our part to gain that control. And the reality is that sometimes there's absolutely, all caps, nothing that we can do except trust that God, who sees all, who knows all, who knew that we would be at this point before we did, is in control. Now, I've been in a lot of situations where everything just seems to be out of my hands and out of my control, but it never seems to get easier to swallow. It never seems to feel easier to just trust that God is in control. And I found myself continuously repeating, whether it was other stuff to do with this house or it was the fire insurance, that God's got this. I can't. Can you relate to that? Do you feel me? Do you kind of feel what I'm putting out there? Maybe it's been with everything that's been happening. Maybe it has nothing to do with COVID and it's just been going on for a very long time. Maybe it has to do with college or jobs or moving or kids or babies or pregnancy. that we're kind of just stuck asking ourselves, what now? When it came to our fire insurance, we saw God come through in a matter of a day and a half. Sometimes when we pray or we're in a situation, it doesn't happen as quickly as that. Or the answer isn't exactly the one that we thought it should be if we were the ones in control. Alas, there's this thing that we need to do, and that is that we need to trust. We need to lean into God when we've got no idea what or why it is going on. And there's a story in the Bible that popped into my head when I thought about, circumstances being out of control and completely having to rely on our faith in God during those times. And that's Joseph's story. And we're going to kind of do a bird's eye view of his story in relation to his life and our life being out of our control and having to fully rely on God to see us through and to see Joseph through. And he did, but it took Joseph's faith and it took time. Now, Joseph's story can be found in Genesis 37 to 50. Exactly why we're going to kind of just, bird's eye view, drone view of his story today. But I would encourage you guys to take the time to go read Joseph's story because there's a lot that we can pull from it. And it's a good story. So anyways, starting at the beginning, Jacob, Joseph's dad, had two wives, Rachel and Leah. One, he really, really, really wanted to marry. Her name was Rachel. And one who, by the encouragement of her father, snuck into Jacob's room one night, pretending to be the one he really wanted to marry. Her name was Leah. Now, I never did say that the Bible wasn't without scandal. You just need to read it to find them. Anyways, Joseph was born to Jacob in his old age and to his wife, Rachel. He was the 11th son of what would be 12, but he was the first son and baby that Rachel was able to have. Now, because of how much Joseph's dad loved Rachel and wanted to marry her, Joseph easily became the favorite of all of Jacob's sons. And Jacob gave him a special gift, and you may have heard, it's a robe of many colors. And let's just say that jealousy came easily to all of Joseph's brothers. And that jealousy hit a whole new level when Joseph began to have dreams of his brothers bowing down to him and him ruling over his brothers. Let's just say that it kind of went too far for his brothers. And when they had a chance, they sold him into slavery to a passing merchant while at work in the field. Then they faked Joseph's death by rubbing goat's blood on the robe and then proceeded to give that to their dad to prove that Joseph was dead. Now, Joseph became a servant of a high-ranking man named Potiphar. And Potiphar's wife liked what she saw when she looked at Joseph and tried to make a move, but Joseph refused, and because he refused her, it now became a thing, and he was thrown into prison. Now, while in prison, he began interpreting people's dreams, which was noted when Pharaoh had some very disturbing dreams that no one else could seem to interpret, no one else could seem to figure out. So that's where Joseph enters the picture. He was able to interpret he was able to interpret Pharaoh's dreams because of his faith in God. Because he was able to do this, he got a promotion by Pharaoh. Now, at the time, there was a great famine in the land, which was what kind of came from Pharaoh's dreams and Joseph helped them get through, which is where his brothers come back into the picture once again. They come to get grain, and they end up seeing their brother in a pretty snazzy new position, and bow they did to him, and rule over them he did. Now, I believe that they probably had one of those moments where the cat's got your tongue when they saw that it was Joseph, the brother that they sold into slavery, in such a high-ranking position. And to cut a very long story short, Pharaoh granted Joseph's family to come and live with Joseph so he could take care of them. So despite what they did, Joseph still took care of his family and his brothers. Now, Joseph had no control over anything that had happened to him. His brothers, clearly full of jealousy, who outnumbered him, like he's one person, they're 10 people, sold him into slavery. He gets his position in a house where the wife hits on him, and when he refuses her advances, he gets thrown into prison. But this is where we begin to see how God has been using this situation all along, even though it's been out of Joseph's control. It was always in God's control because of his faith in God. And because of that, he was able to tell people, what their dreams were meaning, which gets back to Pharaoh eventually. And their things kind of begin to turn around for the better. My mom sent me this verse this week, and I love the imagery of this verse. And I totally think that not only does it relate to the season that we might be going through, but to Joseph's story and the season that he had to endure as well. And it's found in Psalm 75, verse 3. Psalm 75, verse 3. And you can turn there. I'm going to read it from the Message because it's that good. When the earth goes topsy-turvy and nobody knows which end is up, I nail it all down. The NLT says, I keep the foundation firm, and the NIV says, I hold its pillars firm. What is God holding firm in your life right now? And have you taken time to notice that? What is it that we so often miss out on because we're too focused on the fact that our world is topsy-turvy? It's out of control, it's out of our control, that we miss that God has been holding our foundation firm amidst it all. Now, I can't say that I would have ever thought that I would have been pregnant in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. Not exactly the dream pregnancy. It's been interesting, to say the least. And I joked with friends and family at the beginning of March that I kind of went into isolation barely showing, and then I would come out of it and boom, I would be the waddling, no denying that I'm pregnant bump, right? And yesterday, or a couple days ago, I guess now, I had my first encounter with someone who obviously doesn't have me on social media and who I've clearly not seen since March. And their reaction was priceless. She did well to not break the cardinal rule of never asking a woman if she was pregnant, even when there's no denying that pregnant belly. You just don't. But proceeded to say, so what's new with you? Clearly eyeing up my very pregnant belly. And we got to catch up. But if I'm being completely honest, some days I feel like COVID-19 stole my pregnancy experience. And I know many brides feel this way about their weddings. I know it was nothing like I thought it would be. Some of it had to do with COVID-19. Some of it's just pregnancy. But I have had moments of loneliness. I've had moments where I felt really overwhelmed. And I felt like, there was just a lot that was out of my control and I couldn't do anything about it. And I guess if you can, sit on that side of the screen and this is unrelatable to you and you're like, you know what, I've never had a moment in my life where I've either felt out of control or I felt like a situation was out of my control, you're probably lying to yourself and then to me. And I guess what I want to make abundantly clear today is this. As much as it pains me, we don't need to be in control 24/7. And coming from a major control freak, that is saying something, guys. I've learned more in these moments about my lack of faith and trust in God and my need for so much more of it than I did when I had control or so-called control of my life. It's okay to admit defeat when it comes to our trying to control a situation that is beyond our control. Sometimes it is that reminder that we need to fully trust and rely on God's control, rely on the fact that God's got this when we're in the middle of our what now season. And I don't care if you need to cry it out. I don't care if you need to punch a pillow. I don't care if you need to work out or what. But at some point, we need to realize that despite our world being topsy-turvy and we're not knowing why this is happening or why our prayers haven't been answered quite yet or why they weren't answered how we wanted them to be, that God is still holding our foundation firm, that He is nailing it all down, that He is holding up the pillars when everything else around us seems to be falling. God's got us in our what now season. He's not leaving us. He's not left us alone. He is the one holding our foundation firm. And honestly, I couldn't be more thankful. Yes, it's hard for me, but I couldn't be more thankful because it doesn't matter how many times we land back in that what now season of our life, God's still got us. He's still got the ones we love. He's still at work in the middle of our messy, out of control life, even when we're too focused on the chaos to realize it. Someone posted something on Instagram this week, and I don't know the source because they didn't post the source, but I loved how clearly it laid out the reality of what happens when we put our faith in Jesus, despite the season that we're in, despite the storms that we're facing, despite the life that we're feeling is out of control, that we need Jesus. And this is what it says. The victories achieved in the uncertain seasons are rarely due to our own strength. They're the results of clinging to God and relying on others to support us. It is the faithfulness of God that sees us through the storms of life. And when we acknowledge that, we create space for God to show up and show off in our weaknesses. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I put in my notes, but I love that last bit. When we stop trying to do it by our own strength and our own control, we create space for God to show up in our weakness. I would rather Jesus be the hero of my story and for people in my life to see Him at work than for me to have that glory, because I want Him to be the center of my life. I want Him to be the center of my story and for Him to get the glory in every aspect. Even when that means I have to give up control. Even when that means sitting back when I have no control. And Psalm 46, 1-2 says, God is our refuge and strength, always ready to help in times of trouble. So we will not fear when earthquakes come and the mountains crumble into the sea. God is in control. And when things are completely out of our control, He is our refuge and our help. And we just need to let Him be just that. I couldn't fight the fire. I couldn't make it rain. I couldn't take back my pregnancy and wait for a better year for it. Joseph was one brother against 10 older brothers. It was his word of a servant against the wife of a high-ranking person. And he was a prisoner. He didn't have control. It was all out of my control. But one thing holds true. Even at the very worst part of our what now, God is there. And we need to create that space for Him to show off in our weakness. Can you do that today? Whatever it is that is going on in your life, whatever it is that you're feeling like you have no control over, can you create a space for God to show off? Can you trust and remember that in this topsy-turviness of our lives, that God is still holding our foundation firm? That we need to remember and put into action that no matter what is going on in our world and in our lives, that the one thing that never changes is our need for Jesus. And not only that, but our need for more and more and more of Jesus in every situation of our lives. Can we do that today? Let's pray. God, we are so thankful for your word. I'm so thankful for Joseph's story that, we can read his story, we can go over his story, and we just see how you worked through it all. God, how you work through our situations when things are out of our control. God, I pray that you would give us patience. I pray that you would allow us the opportunity to create a space where you get to show off in our weakness in our lives. How cool is that? God, I pray that whatever we're going through, whatever situations that we're in the middle of, where we feel like our world's topsy-turvy, God, that we would just remember that you are holding our foundation firm, that you are in control, that you love us. God, I just pray over today, over the rest of the summer, over the school year that's approaching, God, that we would trust in you, that we would rely on you, that we would let our faith exceed our fear. And I just pray this in your name. Amen.